Welcome to Legally Speaking with Rest the Case, where we simplify important laws and bring expert voices to forefront. Today's episode addresses one of the most sensitive and crucial legal issues in India, the protection of children from sexual offences. We are discussing the POCSO Act, the challenges in its implementation, the barriers, and the delayed justice, and the legal reforms India urgently needs. To guide us through this highly complex topic, we are joined by Advocate Adhiraj Surana, a lawyer who has worked extensively on child protection and criminal laws. So let's dive in and understand what truly happens on ground beyond the pages of the statute. So, first of all, welcome Advocate Surana to the podcast. And thank you so much for being here and answering all our questions.
Thank you. Thank you. Pleasure is all mine.
Sir, to begin today's discussion, could you walk us through what is the POCSO Act and what offenses does it majorly cover?
See, basically, when we talk about POCSO Act, let me just give you the details about the abbreviation. It's Prevention of Child from Sexual Offences Act is what it is. It was carved out in the year 2012, specifically focusing sexual assault cases or sexual harassment cases in relation to child. So basically, for the prevention of child abuse, sexual abuse on any of the children is what is all about POCSO Act. It basically defines sexual harassment, sexual assault, penetrative sexual assault on a child. And the beauty of it is earlier we did not have gender neutral laws when it came to a child, which has now been taken care of after the carvation of POCSO Act.
Okay. And how is this act different from general IPC provisions?
Yeah, when we see IPC in total for the prevention of sexual offenses and all, earlier, like I mentioned, IPC was not very gender neutral about, offenses when it comes to sexual offenses. We had 354 provision outraging a modesty of a woman or 376 rape for that matter. But when it came to particularly addressing the needs of offenses with respect to children, it can be a boy, it can be a girl, anybody who's below the age of 18 years. It did not have a specific mentions about the needs which were required to be sensitive in terms of addressing children when it comes to offenses for them as victims. So that was the necessity carved out, and that was the requirement of the moment when POCSO was introduced. It basically addresses towards the sensitivity of the children as victims, which many of the times they cannot come out when it comes to these kind of offenses, heinous of these kind of offenses, the sensitive part of the narration of the incidents is what is required in these kind of incidents. So that was all the necessity which was time sensitive at that moment, where there was much hue and cry about these cases in our country, where minors of 8 years of age, 4 years of age were basically attributed towards these kind of offenses and all, is when POCSO was introduced.
Right. And what do you think are biggest challenges when it comes to implementation of the POCSO Act?
See, there are multifold challenges as of now, though we have traveled across a lot after 2012 when this act was implemented, and now there are a lot many uh, law enforcement agencies sensitive about these issues coming up and all. But having said that, we still are lacking when it comes to trained personals, counselors, mental wellness experts, when it comes to, getting that testimony from a child, having the narration of facts from a child, getting them or getting their parents to come out to complain about the incidents. At the same time, lack of awareness in institutions, in schools, in educational reforms and all is what basically we are getting challenged about, coupled with lot of baggages, lot of backlash of cases, loads of cases in the judiciary itself to address these kind of cases altogether as a priority. So it's a multifold challenge part when it comes to implementation or nuances about the implementation of
Yeah,
POCSO Act.
yeah. Still, I think these days, a lot of schools at least have introduced some sort of education about this and educating children about certain things, what they should look out for, which I think is a good thing.
Most definitely. Of course, I understand urban schools, urban
Yeah,
places, urban institutions are taking care of these kind of things. They are forming committees, they are forming sexual committees around in the institutions for people, the parents also to come forward with any these
yeah,
kind of complaints if at all there are there. The child also to be, comfortable enough to be outspoken about it and all. But yes, we when we talk about the rural India, the rural part of the country, there is still a lot of hesitation when it comes to victims to come out in
definitely.
the open at outright.
Yeah,
Even the parents are a little hesitant because sometimes the abuse comes from within the family itself, so
yeah,
it's a
yeah.
very dicey situation for them whether to take an action or not.
Definitely. And recently in 2021, there was actually a landmark judgment that had shaped the POCSO interpretation, which is
Yes.
Satish Ragde versus State of Maharashtra, where there was talk
Yes.
about the skin-to-skin contact, which was
Yes.
later overturned by the Supreme Court. So, can you
Yeah.
explain how this case basically influenced the understanding of sexual assault under the POCSO Act?
Right. Actually, it arose from the Bombay High Court when it was a very controversial judgment which was given by the Bombay High Court, wherein it was probably unfortunately laid out by the court itself that for an offense to be committed under POCSO, under the category of sexual assault, there has to be a skin to skin contact of the victim by the perpetrator. And this created a havoc within the judiciary, within the fraternity itself. It was not a very suitable or appreciated judgment, and it traveled to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court on the same year itself overturned it by saying that it is going to curtail the scope of POCSO itself. The scope or the purpose or the intention behind POCSO has to be given weightage to, has to be adhered to, and merely technicalities should not be looked into to give undue benefit to the perpetrators. It's going to demoralize the victims. It's
Mm.
going to demoralize the basic trauma which they are going through it, and it's going to be a laughing stock for the pain and the agony which is being caused to the victim. So the
Yeah,
intention of POCSO has to be given more weightage rather than the technicalities involved under the definitions pointed out in. So
right.
that was a very celebrated judgment and a celebrated modification overturnment by the Supreme Court, and it was really appreciated that it was necessary with the need of the hour.
Right. And do you think false accusations under this act are something that are a cause of concern, or do you think that that is, overstated, or is it a
Um,
concern according to you?
there's a lot of misconception or probably spread of rumors about false complaints when it comes to POCSO, because of course there's a penalty of up to 6 months. There's a punishment of up to 6 months also when it comes to false complaint under POCSO as well. So there's not a lot of course, false complaints regarding POCSO offenses and all. But yes, having said that, the ratio is there. Of
Okay.
course, no law can be 100% foolproof or
Yeah.
perfect for that matter and all. But yeah, the ratio is quite less as compared to the other acts or other offenses in different provisions of law. Maybe a 90-10 ratio is what we can see under POCSO, wherein 10% can be a false complaint or can be a scope of false complaint and all. But yeah, mostly the cases are genuine. More so, I mean, the picture is shown as a false complaint because there is a lot of backlash when it comes to complaints under POCSO because, like I mentioned, much of the time there's a lot of abuse within the family itself,
Mm.
and because it actually originates from within the family, there are so many other considerations when it comes to coming out and complaining about it. It
Yeah.
can be a financial dependence also, it can be fear, it can be hesitation from the society, it can be victim shaming. All those things play a very vital role when it comes to the victim coming out of these kind of allegations and all. So, but yeah, whenever they do so, of course, because it is focused and child-centric law, we cannot just assume that the complaint has to be false or the complaint can be false in its sense, because otherwise it's going to frustrate the purpose behind the
Yeah.
act itself.
Yeah.
So yes, maybe a 90-10 ratio could be there, but there are not lot many false complaints coming up on POCSO.
You mentioned that a lot of the times the victims and the person who's accused are actually from the same family. Is that something that brings its own challenges to actually taking forward a trial under the POCSO Act? And does this then create delays in the trials?
Most definitely. See, first of all, it takes a lot of courage from within the family for the victim.
Mhm.
And when it's the case, when the parents are aware about it, that it has originated from within the family itself, it takes a lot of courage, coupled with a lot of hesitation, coupled with a lot of self-doubt to come out in the open about the complaining of the narration of the incidents and all. And it might so happen that the incident has been a continuous incident over a period of time. The abuse have been continuous, has been a continuous abuse for over a period of maybe weeks or months or years, something like that. And at the end of it, when publicly it comes out in the open, even at that time, the narration of the incident might not be that clear or that crystal, open in the outright, scenario when it comes to, FIRs or complaints for that matter and all.
Yeah.
Coupled with a self dilemma that whether that complaint should be taken forward or during the process of investigation or trial and all, a pressure of compromise or a pressure of a settlement within the family could be arrived and all. So all these dilemma plays a very very vital role when it comes to the scenarios of mental health of a victim and the family members within the family if it originates through that matter and
Right.
all. And these kind of things take a toll over the victim, the family of the victim, and the process as such,
Mhm.
because many expert personnel to deal with these kind of psychological traumas or these kind of psychological advices to be given to the victim as to be outspoken about it or be
Yeah.
outright about it or be firm about it. So these kind of dilemmas take a toll on the victim itself, and that is the reason probably it takes a lot of time for the victim to decide whether to go ahead with the complaint or not.
Yeah.
So that is what happens generally.
Yeah. So one question that I had when you were saying this, like a lot of victims of these crimes take many years at times to actually come forward
Mhm.
and say
Yes.
that they were victims of such crime. Now, for an instance, if a person uh underwent certain assault or certain harassment when they were a child, but only come forward after they have seen they are not a minor, they've become an adult. So what happens in such scenarios? Is their perpetrator still tried under the POCSO Act?
See, yes, of course, because if the incident started or originated at the time when the victim was a minor,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter when he or she comes up with the complaint or with the narration of the facts and all, because like I mentioned, the intention behind the act has to be given the most importance.
Right.
And the intention behind the act is the act itself says prevention of children from sexual offenses. So at the time when he or she is below the age of 18 years of age, if it has originated, though it might they might have come up with the courage maybe several years later down the lane of the incident and all. See, sexual offenses, even, I mean, you can understand as a girl, even in the society now these days, there's a lot of sensitivity towards these
Yeah.
issues. It takes a lot of courage, a lot of patience, and along with, that a lot of support from the family, from the people, from, advisory around you to come out with these kind of allegations and all. Because most of the times, as Indian culture has been working over a period of decades now, there's a lot of victim shaming which used to play a very vital role when these kind of
Yeah.
offenses were not complained of. So even today, like I said, the major portion of our country is in rural areas. These kind of things to come out takes a lot of time, along with a lot of advisory and support from the family to come out. So even in that case, if the complaint pertains to the time when he or she was a minor or a child, of course, the person is going to be tried under the POCSO Act.
Right. And do you think right now the legal system ensures child-friendly procedures during investigations and the trial?
See, when it comes to the provisions, of course, the mechanisms and everything have been put in place under the POCSO Act itself. It
Hmm.
has to be child friendly. The testimony has to be taken in the comfort zone of the child. It can be from the home itself. The police officer accompanying should not wear, uniform. Should be in plain clothing and everything. Should at least try to, suit down the child so that the testimony can come out very fair and square and all. So all those procedures have been laid out under the POCSO Act itself. But yes, when I say that, we also have to see the flip side of the practicality of the things. There's a lot of vacuum when it comes to uh, uh, you know basic human personnel who understand the consciousness or the mental level of a child when it comes to narration of these kind of incidents and all. At the same time, a lot of training is required of the existing staff also when it comes to investigation, when it comes to protecting the identity of the victim, when it comes to the speedy process of investigation, when it comes to the technical details of medical examinations, forensic science, and all those things and all. So all these things play different kind of roles in their own importance when it comes to the investigation part of it. But yes, a good counselor, maybe a good lady counselor who's trained into these kind of stuff, would be a much better suited person when it comes to get the complaints and everything from the victim and all,
Yeah.
and can implement, and these kind of things can be implemented because the provisions are already provided for in the POCSO Act. So that is already there.
Right. And do you think, like, police, for example, like you mentioned, the police is involved in such cases. Um,
Mhm.
do they have proper training on, because I would imagine that these kind of cases are very sensitive in nature. So you require a
Yes.
different mechanism or method when you're dealing with these cases. Do you think the police in our country have that training, or they have proper, training given on how to handle such cases?
No, unfortunately, there's a lot of vacuum to that
Yeah.
aspect. From time to time, honorable, courts of our country have tried to lay down the guidelines or administrative instructions from, time to time, point wise. Even otherwise also, the police personnel, the highest police authorities, of different states and all, they have tried to form different kind of wings for these kind of trainings and all.
Mm.
But like I said, it's almost like a filter paper in a funnel when it starts from the above, but by the time it comes to the ground level, that kind of training is just an eyewash, or maybe just a paper training for that matter and all, which you just finish it on paper
Yeah.
for a couple of hours and all. But it still require a lot of check and measures from the higher authorities when it comes to the sensitivity training of police personnel and all.
Mhm.
So that still is a vacuum area as of now. We still have to come up with that kind of mechanisms. Amendments maybe in the police procedures, in the police rules, in implementation of these kind of things and all. Those are some gray areas or some vacuum areas which we need to still work on. We
Yeah.
don't have that kind of.
Like you mentioned, counselors or child counselors being more involved in
Mhm.
such procedures would also help um,
Yeah.
in, I think easing the child to actually say and come forward,
Yes.
because they are experts who
Yes.
know what to ask the child and how to ask it.
Yes, definitely.
Um, And like with the POCSO Act, do you think that our fast track courts in our country, are they functioning effectively? Are such cases, actually coming to justice quickly, or is that something that is also not happening at the ground level?
See, if like I said, if we see the provisions and the provisions prescribed under the Act, of course, Section 35 prescribes for a fast track court, fast track mechanism of disposal of cases uh, approximately within a 1 year time frame and everything and all. But practicality side of it is that we all know we are overburdened in
Yeah.
the judicial system itself. There's a loads of cases, when it comes to murders, trials, all other kind of punishments and all. It can be rape victims, it can be murder victims, it can be assault victims. All these things are already there.
Hmm.
Of course, fast track courts have been formed, have been incorporated. The judiciary is trying their level best to dispose these kind of cases and give priority to these kind of cases under POCSO and all. But yes, the lack of the manpower in our country, which is a huge vacuum part on that part, is actually a major concern when it comes to not only POCSO cases but otherwise also in general over a period of time in the
Yeah.
judiciary.
Yeah.
So there's a vacuum when it comes to manpower for that matter.
Hmm. I mean, I think as with most acts or most in the legal system, I think lack of resources and improper
Mm-hmm.
implementation, I think, remains to be
Yes,
one of the largest problems, no
yes,
matter what
yes.
kind of
No matter what
crimes you take or
happens.
cases you take. And us being
Exactly.
overburdened, I think, is a perpetual problem that we are facing.
Exactly.
Um,
I mean, different kind of courts have been incorporated for, NDPS cases, for
yeah,
CBI matters, for POCSO matters. Fast track courts have been formed.
yeah.
All those things have been established by the judiciary. All steps and all efforts are being taken by the judiciary.
Hmm.
But at the end of the day, if we don't have enough manpower resources, a person can only do so much. So
Yeah,
that that's all.
and I mean, with most advocates, when I speak to them and have discussions on any type of law act, the one thing that comes out is yes, on paper we have everything, we have the provisions, we have every
Yes. Yes.
procedure laid out properly. But when it comes to actual implementation, that's where we fall short. Um,
That's where we fall short.
yeah,
Yes. The executive part has to be seen.
yeah.
That is what is lacking right now.
Yeah. So I think we have covered most things. There were more questions, but we've kind of touched upon a lot of the aspects.
Okay.
So I just wanted to ask you before we wrap up, is there anything you would like to say, to kind of conclude today's podcast?
When it comes to POCSO, I would just recommend parents, I would just recommend the well-wishers of the victim that the key factor or the key solution lies in communication. If you can communicate enough with your child, if your child can be, free enough, clear enough, and open enough to come to you with these kind of things, the first solution is communication. Law will
All right, so I think we have covered most of the questions today and we've touched upon most aspects. So I just wanted
Mhm.
to ask you what you would like to say to kind of conclude today's podcast.
I would like to recommend the people in the fraternity, like advocates myself and other advocates as well, along with them, the judiciary, along with them, the police personnel, and the family members at large, that there should not be any tolerance policy when it comes to POCSO cases.
Yeah.
Strict adherence has to be given to the intention of this act because it is about the future of our country, that is the children. If we cannot save them, there's nothing we can save in our future.
Yeah. And I think that is a perfect way to end the podcast today. Thank you so much again, Advocate Surana, for helping us understand the POCSO Act from such a practical and empathetic lens. And I think today's conversation shows us what POCSO Act is strong and is a progressive law. And its effectiveness depends on sensitivity, training, and timely action. From systematic delays to societal silence, the challenges are many, but reforms and education, change is possible. And to our listeners, if you're a parent, teacher, guardian, or community member, remember awareness is the first step to protection. And if there's a legal topic you want us to cover next, let us know in the comments. Until next time, stay aware, stay informed, and rest the case.